Hey guys, Scripted here with another video, and this is going to be part 2 of the Luke versus Rey, I should say, breakdown. And again, this is all in relation to the fact that there are still people on social media claiming that Rey is not a Mary Sue because she and Luke are comparable. Now, if you haven't seen it in part 1, I go into just how they learned about the Force itself and the Jedi itself. And of course, an entirely different situation. And what we do here is I put the clips side by side so you can really see it for what it really is, rather than just talking about it on Reddit or on Twitter or whatever. We actually get to see exactly the breakdown. So this part 2 is going to be about the actual training they did. And we're going to go back and forth and break down how that worked. And then to start here, I'm just going to do a quick little thing about their ability to be pilots.
I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
I wish I'd known him.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy. And a cunning warrior. I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself.
Okay, so extremely early on in the original Star Wars, it is established that Luke, in his lineage, his father was the best star pilot in the galaxy. Now, obviously not everything's genetic, blah, 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 but some natural God-given talent helps. And then, of course, if you work on it. So we have that aspect, and we have the initial realization from Obi-Wan saying to us as the audience that Luke's actually a pretty good pilot. So he's not great. He's not the best. It's not like he could have taken on the Death Star by himself, but he's a pretty good pilot. I mean, that's established right away.
You're required to maneuver straight down this trench and skim the surface to this point. The target area is only 2 meters wide. The shaft leads directly to the reactor system. A precise hit will start a chain reaction. The shaft is ray shielded, so you'll have to use proton torpedoes.
That's impossible, even for a computer.
But it's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
Now, I want to throw this in there for 2 reasons. This doesn't technically have anything to do with flying ability, although it does, because in the end, he trusts his instincts, he trusts his abilities, and he turns off his targeting computer. And then he shoots the torpedoes down the shaft. And again, I just want to throw this in there because a lot of the shills and a lot of the people on, or even not even just shills, just people who lack an understanding, will claim that he used the Force to direct the torpedoes. When I show you right there in that clip in the briefing, they turn. So when you see in the movie that he shoots them and then they turn down the shaft and then he goes straight up into the air, that's how they're made. It shows you in the briefing. So no, he didn't use the Force to direct torpedoes. The only thing he uses the Force for at all in this movie is when he can't see and he ends up blocking a couple of the little blaster shots from the little training training droid thing. So he does go on instinct and he does trust his feelings, but he doesn't direct the proton torpedoes. That's total false narrative. And then we get into Rey, and I mean, right off the bat, it looks like she's just slapping buttons. Like, what is going on here? So she does have a few struggles getting the Millennium Falcon off the ground. And you're like, okay, like that's kind of believable, although it's still the Millennium Falcon. It's not like any other ship. Even if she had flown other ships, which they don't establish, nobody says that in the movie. That's something that they added in after the fact in books and stuff. That she apparently flew a ship sometime, somewhere, like a freighter or something. But then she also apparently flew a simulator in a downed Star Destroyer that had no power. Like, how was that even possible? So anyway, they just made it up after the fact because, as you'll see in a second here, she goes from somehow getting the ship off the ground without even really knowing what she's doing, pushing a bunch of buttons, to flying this thing like Han never could, practically. Like, this is insane. Okay, so I think what JJ was thinking here was that we would find it believable because there's a couple of rough spots. Like you see in that last little clip, she does kind of bump a little bit. But she's like flying sideways and twisting and turning through like massive piles of debris and all types of stuff. She shouldn't be able to do it to this extent. It doesn't make any sense. If you had her fly it and just kind of like flew it out of there or something happened to ease her passage, that would be one thing. But this is literally like Han Lando levels of flying ability. Yes, I know she had a couple bumps, but as you know, we'll keep watching a few more of these little clips here. It's totally unrealistic that she would be able to do this because she's a scavenger who, you know, at this point we have no idea. She's there's a book out there that's going to come out that explain that she flew a ship once or she used a flight simulator. So just based on the movie itself, even with that, it's nonsense. But just based on the movie itself, there's no establishment that she has any clue what she's doing, yet she's able to do this. So there you have it. So so regardless of what you think about anything they added, the first time she actually was in a combat situation, right? Because let's assume that she practiced flying some other little ship once or twice on Jakku. In a dogfight situation, she just flew that thing literally like as good or better than any time Han flew it in any situation. Even the fact that she flew right through that Star Destroyer in that little tiny area, that tiny shaft, is very much like Lando flying it through the small shaft of the Death Star in Return of the Jedi. And some people say, oh, well, this is establishing that she's a good pilot. But it doesn't make sense based on what we've been given so far about her background. She's a scavenger. It makes sense that she can climb up walls, right? Like in Starkiller Base, she's all like climbing around and stuff like that. It makes sense she can do that because she's been doing that. But there has to be some form of establishment, and you might say that, oh, well, you know, it's just one line that Obi-Wan says. Yeah, that goes a long way. That is what you need to make it believable. And they could have done that very, very easily, but they didn't because Rey's just great at everything. There's no reason to explain it, right? So there you go. So as far as being able to fly a ship, total makes sense, can totally see how it works on one end. Totally doesn't make sense and is just silly on The Force Awakens.
Yes, a Jedi's strength flows from the Force. But beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the Force are they.
So now we're into the training side of it. I just want to mention really quickly that it's funny that Yoda makes a huge deal about not falling to the dark side. He brings it up multiple times in Empire, over and over and over again, how important it is not to give into anger. And then throughout the sequel trilogy, Rey gives into anger constantly. Like, it's not just once or twice. It is constantly. To the point where she shoots lightning. She's constantly angry, guys. And yet, never falls to the dark side. What was Yoda so worried about?
Once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will.
Is the dark side stronger?
No. Quicker, easier, more seductive.
But how am I to know the good side from the bad?
You will know when you are calm, at peace. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack.
Master Skywalker, I'm from the Resistance. Your sister Leia sent me. We need your help.
This whole thing is so bizarre, right? Because on the one hand, here you have Luke is with Yoda for, you know, debatable amount of time, but based on, no hyperdrive, going from Hoth to Bespin and all that stuff, probably took a few weeks. People debate it. It would take at least a few weeks, 3-4 weeks. So here's Luke going through this whole big process with Yoda. Yoda even says, "This is all I'm going to teach you today." There's multiple. You get the sense that it's going over a long period of time. Anyway, he's teaching him. He's teaching him about the dark side. He's teaching him about the Jedi. He's teaching him the physical side of it, doing all these things, and that's after, like I said earlier, Luke hasn't really done much in the Force at all. So it makes sense that he's training. But here in the second movie and the sequels, Rey has already used a mind trick. She's already defeated a 20-year veteran. And before you say, oh, he was wounded, he picked her up in the Force and threw her up against a tree. He could have just kept doing that. He could have knocked her out. At one point in their fight, she's reminded by him to use the Force. So she was fighting him for a while without it, and then she starts using it, and then she gets angry and defeats him, essentially, doesn't kill him. So she does all these things in the first film without ever having any mentorship whatsoever. And then in the second film, when she does get mentorship, she's essentially the mentor. She's trying to convince Luke to come back into the fold. So she doesn't really train. She's almost training him to come back. So it's a very bizarre situation. And certainly you would have to make the argument that makes her way too powerful and way too knowledgeable with way too little experience. It doesn't make sense. Again, scavenging around for 20 years doesn't make you know all this stuff and understand all this stuff.
Go away.
He said you're coming back with us.
How did you find me?
Long story, we'll tell you on the Falcon.
Falcon.
So as you can see, she's pretty persistent, right? In the previous clip, she was chasing him down after he ran away, after he threw the lightsaber. She goes and gets the lightsaber. She's holding it, almost contemplating, oh, how am I going to get this guy? And then she's very persistent, gets Chewie to break his door down, tells him, you're coming with us and you have no choice in the matter. Like, this is somebody in a leadership position that has not earned the leadership position. It would be the equivalent of Luke meets Obi-Wan, and then Luke is telling Obi-Wan what to do and where to go and what the plan is. Think of how stupid that is. So it's not really an arc. It's just kind of, she just is what she is, and then everybody else is sort of swimming in the goo around her to uplift her character. And Luke is the prime example.
We'll never get it out now.
So certain are you? Always with you, it cannot be done.
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
I can't. It's too big.
Size matters not. Look at me. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the force around you.
You want the impossible. I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
So just think of how opposite this is. Like, Yoda's teaching Luke a very, very important lesson. Obviously, I have to break it up. I can't just show it all. It's I'd definitely get a copyright strike. But I mean, we've all seen it. But it's an amazing teaching moment. Luke is making progress. He's holding some rocks up. He's doing some things. But Yoda can sense in him, he still doesn't have that real belief that he can really be who he needs to be. And so he uses this as an illustration to get him to believe in himself. Now, of course, people will say, well, That's all you need then. You can be a Jedi just by believing. That's why Sabine can be a Jedi. And it's like, no, that's just one aspect of it. Everybody gets caught up in one single thing so they can justify crappy writing. That's just one aspect of it. Luke still has to train. He still has to go through a process. He still has to face Vader. He still has to deal with his friends and their conflicts and all these other things. And how he's becoming in touch with the Force and the belief in himself and in the Force as it flows through him. There's all those things together and more things. On the flip side, Rey never learns this. Ever. She just believes in herself and you don't really understand why. Like, where does this incredible confidence come from?
We need your help. We need the Jedi Order back. We need Luke Skywalker.
You don't need Luke Skywalker.
Did you hear a word I just
You
said?
think what? I'm gonna walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order?
Now, beyond this being a totally bizarre thing to say, Luke would never say that. Yeah, that's what she means, Luke. She wants you to face down the whole First Order. She's not just asking you for help. So, of course, Luke has to be an idiot as well to make her look better. Again, she's recruiting him. Where is she getting the confidence to understand how to use the Force with no teacher in Force Awakens and no teacher in The Last Jedi? Just literally no teacher at all, ever. Where is she getting this confidence from?
What did you think was going to happen here? You think that I came to the most unfindable place in the galaxy for no reason at all? Go away.
I'm not leaving without you.
You're wasting your time. Who are you?
You've seen this place. You've seen this island.
Only in dreams.
So part of me wonders if, like, they were trying to do, like, opposite world with Rey and Luke compared to Yoda and Luke, or Rey and Luke, yeah, compared to Yoda and Luke. I guess we'll call him Jake, the Last Jedi Luke. But I don't think they realize that, like, it falls flat when you think, like, this person who has no life experience, knows nothing about anything, is somehow the leader here. And somehow she already knew about the tree and the text and all this stuff. Like, why? Like, they don't give a reason for anything. It just is. It's very boring.
Who are you?
The Resistance sent me.
They sent you. What's special about you?
Yeah, exactly. There's no establishment of anything. And then in The Rise of Skywalker, they tried to shoehorn in this Palpatine thing. Like, this is so crazy. And again, when you put this against what Luke's dealing with at the same time in his second movie, which was a year later, by the way, not 2 days later, it's just insanity.
You need a teacher. I can't teach you.
Why not? I've seen your daily routine. You're not busy.
I will never train another generation of Jedi. It's time for the Jedi to end.
Why?
Concentrate. Feel the Force flow. Yes. Through the Force, things you will see, other places, the future, the past.
Han? Leia!
So again, on the one hand, you have Luke or Jake, being unwilling to train her, even though she doesn't need it anyway, and he never really does anyway. And then on the other hand, you have, again, another very deep situation with Luke where he's really learning to feel it and understand it, and now he's starting to see things and really sort of harnessing his abilities with a proper teacher, whereas Rey just does it with nobody and with a bum who basically tells her the Jedi are crap. So again, what is motivating her and why would she even care at all? None of it makes sense.
What do you know about the Force?
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Okay, so it's important to understand that right there establishes a huge contradiction. Because we've seen her force pull a lightsaber better than Ben. We've seen her do a Jedi mind trick, and we've seen her defeat a trained Jedi when she finally realized to use the Force, or trained Sith, whatever you want to call them. So, right then and there's a huge contradiction. If she didn't have any understanding of anything, how was she able to do that? That's an important thing. And remember, Jon Favreau snuck in the line where Luke says about Grogu training, or the Force without training is nothing or negligible, or whatever he says when he picks up Grogu. So there's a huge contradiction here, and somehow they left this in the film. So it's really, really, really weird. And it gets weirder here on this scene on the rock. It's super weird.
Breathe. Just breathe. Powerful light, powerful darkness.
It's cold. It's calling me.
You went straight to the dark.
This one's really, really weird. Because basically, again, another huge contradiction. They're saying that when she had no knowledge of anything, she was good and using the Force for good and this huge help and all that stuff. And then as soon as she goes and gains a little bit of Force knowledge and is being sort of quasi-trained here, she immediately goes to the dark, which immediately makes her like crazy more powerful than she was before. And she's cutting a mountain in half, cracking a mountain in half. It's just so bizarre. And again, you put that against Luke, who he's training and he's struggling and he's slowly getting there. She's just there, and then when she does get some training, she becomes even more powerful, but in the wrong way. It's super weird, and yet she never does fall to the dark side just by being angry all the time. So again, the whole thing is very, very bizarre.
That place was trying to show me something.
It offered something you needed. And you didn't even try to stop yourself.
It's so bizarre, too, that Luke's all like, or Jake's all like, oh, it offered you something you needed and you didn't even stop yourself. She's your Padawan, you dip. Supposed to be. She isn't really. You're her Padawan. But wouldn't you be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, shouldn't you be like, well, she doesn't really understand what she's doing, not, you didn't stop yourself? Again, the whole thing is nonsense. Like, this isn't training. This is just gobbledygook.
I feel the Force.
But you cannot control it. This is a dangerous time for you, when you will be tempted by the dark side of the Force.
If you choose the quick and easy path, as Vader did, you will become an agent of evil.
The legacy of the Jedi is failure, hypocrisy, hubris.
That's not true.
It was a Jedi Master who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader.
And a Jedi who saved him. And you didn't fail Kylo. Kylo failed you. I won't.
So again, you have such a different contrast. So even when Luke is leaving, they're still trying to impart wisdom into him, and they're talking to him, and they're telling him this, and they're telling him that, trying to get him into the right mindset so that something bad doesn't happen. And then on the flip side, Jake is being literally taught that what he did was good. And that she's never going to fail him, and she's the best. Now, Luke does say that, but at least his mentors are imparting wisdom before he leaves, whereas Luke tells her how crappy the Jedi are. And yet, somehow, she remains motivated to be one. The only one she ever met, and the legend tells her they're stupid, but she's like, no, they're not. She didn't need him. What was the point of their relationship at all? Did not need him for anything.
Are you with me?
Patience.
I'm starting to think it isn't possible to hear the voices of the Jedi who came before.
Nothing's impossible.
Now here she is training herself with her own training thing, and Leia imparts the two lines of wisdom. She taught her that nothing's impossible. She said it's the big lesson for Rey in the entire trilogy that she didn't know about was nothing's impossible.
Rey!
And then I just wanted to finish it off with her, again, training herself. Like, I guess that's where she learned healing and all this other stuff. And Luke never bothered to. I don't understand. None of it makes any sense. It's really, really foolish and really, really stupid. But there's people out there that seem to try to say that these two characters are equivalent. And once again, so we've done learning about the Force, learning about the Jedi, pilot abilities. Now we've done training as well. And you can totally see it's completely different. And so there's absolutely no way anybody could say that these two characters have any kind of similar arc whatsoever. Obviously, I'm going to have a couple more videos. We still have to get into lightsabers and some other stuff. But let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Always helps the channel. Feel free to check anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a good day.